Okay, we are ready. Okay, good.
We're all set.
Okay, guys. Quiet, please.
Again, my name is Linda Tolman, and I'm from Cape Cod, Massachusetts, and I've been coming to Sharon's meetings for the past 25 years,
Yay.
since I was 5 years old. Actually, today I'm going to be your narrator, and I'm basically reading a beautiful composition presentation written by our member, Madeline Bayless, who has presented this, and it's basically for anyone who's new with the club, to let everyone know how special the communication between Jeanette and Nelson, and how music and lyrics were their means of communication, and how special that was. And we're going to present some of the key musical songs here on CD for you. In our mutual quest to know more about the lives of our two honorees, Nelson and Jeanette, we sometimes forget or overlook at the most powerful influence in their lives, and that which bonded them forever was their devotion to music. Music was their language by which they communicated to each other, whether it was secular or sacred, song or aria. This afternoon we would like to bring you a few musical memories. You may recognize some, and others may be new. But in any case, hopefully, it will evoke wonderful memories of their magnificent talent and how they communicated one to the other their love for each other. They both had the uncanny ability to select music that expressed their intimate feelings. This could be at a given time or a time that related to their professional or personal lives that kept them apart, or when they were able to take advantage of situations that allowed them to work together. We will start with one selection that reveals how Nelson viewed his love for Jeanette in the final years of their lives. It is important that you always remember that the lyrics of a song or aria were dominant in their selection of what they sang. You will listen to the words and their meaning. Only then will you comprehend what is really being communicated between the two. This particular song, which we'll be playing shortly, was recorded by Nelson in December of 1960. Nelson and Jeanette were now approaching their 60s, and in their era, 65 was considered retirement age. No doubt Nelson was attracted to this song because the melody was taken from one of his favorite composers, Johannes Brahms' Hungarian Dance No. 4. The music was adapted by Peter de Rose, and the lyric composed by Charles Tobias in 1946. This lyric Nelson sings fits perfectly with what was then their current status in 1961. Was there any other person except Nelson's beloved Jenny to whom he could have sung this beautiful, poignant lyric? Absolutely not. The song is an expression of the strength of their love for each other as they are about to pass into the last few years of their lives. As you listen to Nelson's magnificent performance, take particular note of his reprise and the ending climax as he sings this lovely song. There is no doubt that Jeanette would have been overcome with joy at hearing Nelson's passionate interpretation of this beautiful musical message to her. He sings this loving tribute to her with his heart and his voice. An interesting adjunct to Nelson's recording is a letter from the conductor of this recording session in reply to an inquiry made by Larry Kiner, who put together the wonderful Nelson Eddy discography. This is a letter from Skitch Henderson regarding the Nelson Eddy recording session made in December 1960, where this song was featured. It was in response to an inquiry by Larry and made many years after the Everest Records recording session of 23 songs for the LPs entitled The Artistry of Nelson Eddy and Of Girls I Sing. Quote, "How strange you should make an inquiry about Nelson Eddy. My history goes back to the MGM studios where I worked in the music department as a rehearsal pianist, and at that time I accompanied Mr. Eddy and Miss MacDonald. As to the Everest record, the circumstances were strange. I arrived home from NBC about 8 o'clock one night in New York, and Mr. Schertzer, who was the contractor, called me in a state of panic. The conductor who had been assigned to the album with a 10 p.m. start out, I should say, on Long Island had some catastrophe, which meant he couldn't appear. In their desperation, they called me and asked me to come out. Knowing how exact Nelson felt about his repertoire, I made a very nervous trip, really as a favor to the contractor. When I arrived, Nelson greeted me like a true friend, and we finished the date 2.5 to 3 hours under the prescribed time. It was a wonderful renaissance for me and a great joy to work with him. As to the personnel, I have no idea. Those records are long since gone. Sad to say, no one ever gave me a copy of the recordings, but you now have the facts as to how it came about. It brings back such wonderful memories for me. Signed, Skitch Henderson, March 14, 1992. Before we play the CD, let's skip back in time to November or December of 1934. Nelson and Jeanette are hard at work on their first film together, Naughty Marietta. You are going to hear an actual recording made on the MGM soundstage of Nelson singing what was the 8th take of the stirring song, "'Neath the Southern Moon." Jeanette is on the stage with him, and the dialogue between Warrington and Marietta at the conclusion of the song had to be recorded at the same time to get the timing absolutely in sync when they filmed the scene. This you will hear, and it seems that Nelson's scripted but recognizable laugh and chuckle at the end has something to do with the fact that Jeanette muffed her lines. That happened so rarely that no doubt it tickled Nelson, who was usually the one who was muffing the lines, but then he was just a beginner. What take was ultimately used we will never know, but it was not this one for sure. This will be followed by listening to Jeanette's recording on the same Soul sound stage, because there was only one, of her beautiful rendition of Velia from The Merry Widow. It was released in 1934, but filming began in 1933.
Okay, that's better.
As years go by, this love we know. As years go by, we'll live sky at midnight. There's a witch upon a magic broom. There is danger in the southern sky at midnight. If you look on high, it will lead you to your doom. With a magic scent of sweet magnolias and the tender tune the breezes play, before you know, she's cast her spell around you. Before you know, she steals your heart away. 'Neath the southern moon, where love is warm and tender, by the southern sea, where love is warm and free, 'neath the spreading shade of palms you will surrender. Oh, I know it's always Joan. 'Neath the southern moon. There you see, you couldn't help yourself. Every note a jewel.
Oh, it didn't move me that much.
Oh, come on, Your Highness.
And don't call me that again.
All right, Blue Eyes. What have I said that's so...
Oh, I've heard nothing but bragging insult from you. You're right. You're right. You're nothing but a blood mark. A blood mark. Oh, what you said. And henceforth you can direct your croaking somewhere else now.
'Neath the southern moon.
Look at that. 129 SC, take 8. Nelson Eddy singing 'Neath the Southern Moon. 1, 2, 3.
One, two, three.
Now we move on to January of 1943. Nelson was preparing for his annual concert tour, and Jeanette was booked to make a singing appearance on the Charlie McCarthy radio program. The song she selected was from an early Victor Herbert operetta, The Only Girl. She had sung this song to Nelson on Christmas Eve of 1942 and now sings it to the man she loves regarding his impending absence while he is away on concert tour. The lyric embodied all of her feelings in the song, When You're Away. Jeanette was only singing this song to the man she loved and would miss. Listen carefully to the words as she pours her heart out in song. This was their pattern. When they had radio engagements, there were always certain selections directed to the one they loved. Those people who understood the love bond between Jeanette and Nelson always recognized which songs were special. For Nelson, it was his way of affirming his desire to, quote, tell the world of his love for her, whereas Jeanette was usually more discreet. But in this particular song, it's vividly apparent to whom it is directed. As time went on, she too always had a special song for Nelson in her concert repertoire, as he always did for her. Under Nelson's tutelage, her repertoire became more professional and offered her more lovely songs to sing for him. One film selection she seemed to have a very special affinity for and sang quite often was the film version of Franz Liszt's Liebestraum, also known under the English title, Dream of Love. That song so moved her that when she was observed singing it on the radio production of the Prudential Hour, she concluded the program with tears in her eyes. We will hear her beautiful recording of When You're Away when we play the next CD. For those of you who are not old enough to have the pleasure of attending one of Nelson's recitals, we have for you a remarkable recording that will bring you very close to what a thrill it was to attend one of his concerts. Nelson and Ted are performing, and their talents combined enthrall their audiences. Never forget that Nelson was for many years the #1 box office concert performer in the world, in addition to being the highest paid performer for almost 15 years. Jealousy of his success was rampant, but even Francis Marion can be quoted as saying that Nelson was never jealous about other artists. On January 19, 1941, the inaugural gala for President Franklin Delano Roosevelt's unprecedented third term was presented at Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C. The hall was sold out days before the gala and was filled to capacity with over 3,700 people. Nelson Eddy was the featured performer of the program. It was the very first time that the inauguration was broadcast to the nation as it occurred. The original Master of Ceremonies was to be Robert Sherwood, the great literary figure of the time, but he was replaced by Douglas Fairbanks, Jr. The protocol was rigid and not to be tampered with under any circumstances. They had a limited amount of radio broadcast time, and the program had to adhere to a strict schedule. There were a number of prominent guests who contributed to the program. However, the only artist featured in both the first and second half of the program was Nelson Eddy. As always, Ted Paxson provided Nelson's superb accompaniment on the piano. Nelson selected his own repertoire for the program, and he took great care that it was both dignified and a celebration of the event. To that end, Nelson selected the 6 airs that make up Johann Sebastian Bach's The Peasant Cantata as his contribution to the first half of the program. Nelson sang his own English translation of the German lyric, and when the 6 lyrics are studied, we can understand why Nelson selected them as perfect subject matter for this dignified occasion. His performance was received with great enthusiasm by this auspicious audience. In the second half of the program, which was the only part recorded, the audience was thrilled at his second appearance. He was scheduled to sing 4 concert songs in the following order. The first one, The Crown of the Year by East Hope Martin, which was a joyful salute to the president. The famous Blind Plowman by Clark, which is a very spiritual tribute. The third, The Miller's Song, which was a humorous Russian song but sung in English. And last, How Do I Love Thee? This famous sonnet by Elizabeth Barrett Browning was set to music at Nelson Eddy's request by Dr. Edward Lippe. When Nelson finished with The Crown of the Year, the audience roared with approval. Finally, they calmed down, and Nelson announced The Blind Plowman in its inspirational message. At its conclusion, the audience reception was profound, and in keeping with the moving spiritual text. By now, the Master of Ceremonies, Douglas Fairbanks Jr., was upset with the audience in their prolonged response to his performance. He was concerned that Nelson might not keep within the protocol of no encores. But he did not know Nelson very well. We know that Nelson would never disturb the dignity of the occasion. At this point, Nelson cued Ted to skip the Miller song as to catch up the time the audience had used, and went directly to How Do I Love Thee. His performance was spectacular and brought the house down and swept them off their feet. Fairbanks was fearful that they would insist on another encore from Nelson. Being a radio broadcast, Nelson knew they had limited time, and he just took several additional bows to acknowledge the overwhelming audience reception. It was no wonder that Nelson was the #1 American baritone in the 30s and 40s. This recording is as close as one can get to what occurred at Nelson's concerts. His audience loved him, and he responded with giving him his best. To us, we recognize his thrilling performance of Browning's sonnet for what it was, his personal love song to Jeanette. He sang it at each of his 28 concerts on his 1941 tour. We hope you'll enjoy and appreciate this historical, exciting, and memorable event.
of Constitution Hall in Washington, D.C., Columbia brings you part of the inaugural gala, one of the many elaborate functions which will culminate in tomorrow's inauguration ceremonies. In the audience are Mrs. Roosevelt and other members of the President's family, Vice President-elect and Mrs. Henry Wallace, members of the Cabinet, of Congress, the Diplomatic Corps, and some 30 state governors. Douglas Fairbanks, Jr. of Screen and Stage has acted as Master of Ceremonies. And this evening, all during this concert, there have appeared the National Symphony Orchestra, Lisa Stevens, Raymond Massey, Nelson Eddy, Mickey Rooney, Irving Berlin, again the National Symphony Orchestra, and just a minute ago, Ethel Barrymore concluded a reading of Walt Whitman's poem, Leaves of Grass.
We have now an added surprise, someone we have already heard. We're going to hear again. And no one could be more thrilled than I am, none of you, and I know you are all thrilled to the utmost. Mr. Nelson Eddy will come to us again.
Mr. Theodore Paxson is at the piano, and our first number is The Crown of the Year by East Hope Martin.
Sing, sing of the harvesting time, hi-ho, the sun is so fair. Fields all aglow with sheaves in a row, and harvesters harvesting there. Cutting the corn with a jolly good will. Corn for the market and corn for the mill, plenty for all and to spare. Plenty for all and to spare. Oh, this is the crown of the year, the glory and crown of the year. Although you may sing of the joy of the spring, although you may sing of the joy of the spring, yet this is the crown of the year. Sing, sing of the harvesting time, hi-ho, the moon is so fair. Fields all ashine with sheaves in a line, and never a harvester there. Only a man and a maid by the tree, dreaming of love and a cottage to be, cottage for lovers to share, cottage for lovers to share. Oh, this is the crown of the year, the glory and crown of the year. Although you may sing of the joy of the spring, although you may sing of the joy of the spring, yet this is the crown of the year, the crown of the year.
Our next number is The Blind Plowman by Coningsby Clark.
Set my hands upon the plow, my feet upon the sod. Turn my face towards the east, and praise be to God. Every year the rains do fall, the seeds they stir and spring. Every year the spreading trees shelter birds that sing.
Love Thee. The poem by Elizabeth Barrett Browning. The song by Dr. Edward Lippy. How do I love thee? Let me count the ways. I love thee to the depth and breadth and height my soul can reach. When feeling out of sight for the ends of being and ideal grace, I love thee to the level of every day's most quiet need. By sun and candlelight, I love thee freely as men strive for right. I love thee purely as they turn from praise. I love thee with a passion put to use with my old griefs and with my childhood's faith. I love thee with a love I seem to lose with my lost saints. I love thee with a breath, smiles, tears of all my life. And if God chose, I shall but love thee better after death.
Mr. Eddy retires once again. The audience insistent tries to return by the sheer volume of its applause around the course of the program. And I don't believe Mr. Eddy may sing one. The rule has so far held sway over the whole performance. Eddy has come out on the stage again, taken a bow, and is retiring. Fairbanks moves toward the microphone. We introduce the next guest in the program. The applause begins to rise again. And this time, Mr. Eddy returns once more to the stage, bows again, and then makes his way off the stage to the side, out of entrance. The applause grows more insistent, and I don't know if Mr. Fairbanks is going to be able to get the audience's attention or not. Mr.
Thank you,
Fairbanks.
Mr. Eddy.
Oh, that was great. Awesome.
You can just imagine Jeanette home listening to this on the radio, knowing that the special message was meant for her. We hope you've enjoyed our presentation today and it's brought back memories of the magnificent talent of both Nelson and Jeanette. Nelson's music collection that contains thousands of songs is itself a testament to his lifelong dedication to music. Although we regret not having access to Jeanette's personal collection, we're able to follow her musical development from a girl who came off the musical comedy stage and wanted to achieve her goal to become the concert recitalist and opera singer she always aspired to be. That transition was realized as the result of her relationship with Nelson. It was he who not only encouraged her but worked with her for years. She admitted that Nelson was a force she had never encountered before. She witnessed his dedication, devotion, and powerful work ethic to perform at the top of his capabilities, and she set forth to emulate him. It was Nelson who transformed her into the artist she desperately wanted to be. For Nelson, who might have left Hollywood but stayed because of his love for Jeanette, it was a fortuitous change in plans. Nelson had seen the artist that lay hidden beneath Jeanette's movie star facade. They both admitted that each was the inspiration for the other in both private and public life. It was her love for Nelson, her own strong work ethic, and under Nelson's gentle, patient mentoring that she grew into the musical world that Nelson inhabited since he was a very young man. Not only did he give her the benefit of what he had learned over the years, he also taught her to select her music and how to organize a formal concert program. He even went so far as to purchase the gowns that he wanted her to wear on stage that were not only beautiful, but in keeping with her status as a concert artist. Insofar as her operatic career was concerned, she adapted to the genre under Nelson's guidance to be a singing actress as he coached her in the roles of Juliet for Romeo and Juliet and Marguerite for Faust. She performed both operas in 1943, 44, and 45 to excellent reviews. Their life together can be summed up in an old but very important phrase that should be considered their mantra, quote, "Music is love in search of a word." They did find the words in the music they sang to each other. We know that Nelson often rewrote lyrics that he could only sing in private to express his personal feelings for the woman he loved. That activity went on for the better part of their lives, as you heard today. Thank you, Sharon, for allowing us to present this forum to you and bring back a lot of beautiful memories. Thank you.